Alright, hello everyone, my name is Dylan Craven, and welcome to my presentation. Alright, so this presentation is going to cover a song by Kendrick Lamar. He is an American rapper, songwriter, and record producer. He was born June 17th, 1987 in Compton, California, and he's widely regarded as one of the most talented and influential hip-hop artists of our time. His music career started back in 2003, and it has continued all the way till 2022 with his latest album release, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. So, a little bit about the song and the album as a whole. So, the song is called The Blacker the Berry, and it is a track from To Pimp a Butterfly, which is one of Kendrick's, I believe it's his third album, which released in 2015. The album was called To Pimp a Butterfly. So the album was considered a landmark in modern hip hop because of its themes of race. It talks about inequality, social issues, personal struggle. It received widespread nomination and critical acclaim. It was nominated for multiple Grammys, including Album of the Year and Best Rap Album. And the song on the album is widely regarded as one of the better tracks and one of the more critically acclaimed and talked about tracks on the album as well. So, to give a summary of this song, the song begins with a mumbled and contradictory repetition of wanting everything to be black, but also not everything needing to be black at all. The song transitions into imagery of riots in the streets and acknowledgments of insults commonly spoken about African Americans. The next section of the song is repeated twice more throughout the duration of the song, and Kendrick states that he's the biggest hypocrite of 2015, and by the end of the song we'll know what he means by that. The section continues with prideful statements about being black, juxtaposed with blunt statements of racist rhetoric towards black people, such as hating their culture, etc. This is followed by claims that American culture has sabotaged black communities, making them killers and criminals. The next part of the song once again juxtaposes black people's place in society during the days of slavery in the 17 and 1800s versus now in contemporary America. The song finishes with Lamar questioning why he feels prideful about being black and wants to see improvements within the black community when he was involved in gangbanging that led to the death of another black man. The song ends with him calling himself a hypocrite. So, just from that summary, we can tell that the song discusses dark themes of black identity, self acceptance, emotional distress that comes from that prejudice, and more. So Kendrick Lamar uses several poetic devices throughout the duration of the song to emphasize and bring attention to the themes and the messages he wants to convey in that theme. So the first poetic device that I noticed, and that is used quite often throughout the entirety of the song, is repetition. So the very first section of the song, which is this quote on the left here, which I talked about in the summary, is repeating wanting everything to be black, not wanting everything to be black, saying he doesn't need things to be black, and then again saying wanting everything to be black. So here, Kendrick's repetition and contradiction of wanting everything to be black, and then saying not needing things to be black. I think this depicts the confusion and frustration he experiences because of the racial prejudice he experiences. He goes back and forth on the idea of wanting to stand proudly for his ethnicity, but also subduing his pride to avoid unnecessary conflict with racist individuals or institutions. This also implies that he's become disillusioned with the concept of no longer knowing what exactly he wants to stand for as a result of his circumstances. So we can see repetition used again when he claims, "I'm the biggest hypocrite of 2015. Once I finish this, witnesses will convey just what I mean." This is repeated 3 times throughout the song, and each time the listener gains a little bit more in the following verses, gains new insight into Kendrick's frustration, feelings, and his experience with racial prejudice in America. And so by the end, when the listener finally learns why he feels this way, the impact of the reveal is much greater. The listener understands how greatly this feeling of being a hypocrite weighs on Kendrick's mind. So further, we see the poetic device rhyme used a ton in this song. As you can imagine, this is a hip hop song, so nearly every verse of every section is filled with some sort of rhyme. And I think he uses this to convey key points or bring the listener's attention to these key points. So, for instance, on the left here, this quote, which talks about saying, "It's such a shame they may call me crazy. They say I suffer from schizophrenia or something, but homie, you made me." Um, I think this is pointing out or exaggerating the irony that white America loves to call black people, or Kendrick in particular, crazy, but there are also ones that they are also the ones that put Kendrick in these worst positions, or black people in these worst positions as a whole. So another instance of this is in the lines, "I mean, it's evident that I'm irrelevant to society. That's why you're telling me penitentiary would only hire me." Here, Kendrick's addressing systemic racism and societal bias that leads to the marginalization of black individuals, and how this feeling manifests itself feeling unwanted and disadvantaged. So the next poetic device is figurative language. It's used heavily in these lyrics as well, as many of the lines he writes have double meanings or speak to a greater message or the theme to the song as a whole. Take, for example, the section, "The blacker the berry, the sweeter the juice. The blacker the berry, the bigger I shoot." So this is actually a common, well, not a common, but a more historical sentiment of black empowerment, this quote. And it implies that the darker the skin, the more kind, confident, or wise someone ought to be or is to be. But also the ending where it switches to "the bigger I shoot" showcases the opposite meaning of the previous lines, implying that far too often the blacker someone is, the more likely they are to become violent or commit crime from societal pressures mentioned earlier in the song. On the right here is another example. Um, this "race starts from the block" can mean race as in ethnicity. Uh, Block can symbolize or mean a street, like a block of a town, or it can mean the blocks that a sprinter uses to start at the beginning of a race. And lastly, the last poetic device I want to talk about here is paradox. So Kendrick often uses paradox to showcase the irony or differences between two themes or examples of people or ideas in society. So on the left side here, these lyrics, I won't try to repeat them, but they exemplify um, the, I say the difference between um, the meaning of the items like chains and whips, where chains and whips were previously used to subjugate and enslave Africans, are now seen as statuses of symbol, whips being cars and chains being jewelry. And then the entire song, Kendrick speaks about being prideful of being black, hating the racist prejudices in America. And by the end of the song, we learn that he was involved in a killing of another black man, and that he feels a hypocrite for doing this, and that how can he feel all this pride while also participating in the violence and crime that he speaks so condemningly of. Okay, so that was a lot. But I think through Kendrick's wide use of poetic devices, coupled with a deeply passionate and creative medium, makes for a captivating and introspective song. The themes of internal conflict, anger, confusion, and pride are exemplified by these poetic devices. Throughout every verse, it tackles a deeply personal and troubling topic of Kendrick Lamar's life and the lives of many African Americans today. So yeah, that was my presentation. I hope you learned something. This song is incredible. You should definitely give it a listen. It's filled with figurative language, passion. It's definitely one of the more um, inspiring hip hop tracks of this generation. So give it a look. It's incredible. Thank you for listening.